Aaron Palouse with Vista Defense Training wanted to discuss firearm safety as it relates to the firearms owner. If you follow the 4 safety rules as codified by Colonel Jeff Cooper, it will go a long way to preventing a problem down the road. Number 1, all guns are always loaded. Number 2, never let the muzzle cover anything you're not willing to destroy. Number 3, keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target. And number 4, know your target and what's beyond it. Let's discuss these rules in a little more depth. Number 1, all guns are always loaded. No, a logical thinking person is going to recognize that guns are not always loaded all the time. But if you treat them as if they are loaded, that's going to go a long way in preventing any problems. Number 2, never let the muzzle cover anything you're not willing to destroy. The muzzle is the front end of the gun here, where the bullet comes out. You don't want it crossing your arm, your hand, your leg as you're holstering or drawing your firearm. You need to be very cognizant of where the muzzle is pointing. I see a lot of people with inexpensive holsters on the range that when they go to reholster, they have to reach around with their support hand, open up that holster, and then they cross their hand in order to reinsert the pistol into the holster. This is not a good thing because if something were to go wrong, you could potentially have a problem going to the hospital. Number 3, keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target. Where my finger is right here is a perfectly acceptable place to put your finger along the along the frame. Some people will put it along the slide, that's fine. I prefer it right down here. You'll see some folks with their finger on the front edge of the trigger guard. The problem is I've got normal size hands, average size hands, and my finger barely touches the front of the trigger guard. If I were startled or something happens, my finger could very easily slip into the trigger and cause a discharge. You don't want to do that. You need to be very careful. If you're shooting competition, oftentimes you will find, or the majority of the range officers you will find will expect your finger to be on the frame or along the slide because that they can see from any angle that your finger is not in the trigger. So make sure that you find a spot somewhere on the frame or slide to index your finger. In this particular case, this 1911, the other side of the takedown lever, my finger fits quite nicely right on top of it. It's a good index point for me. Number 4, know your target and what's beyond it. If you're using your firearm in a self-defense role and you're in public and something goes wrong, you could very well happen to have a bunch of people running between you and the target. You want to make sure that you do not put a round into somebody that you do not intend to shoot. This is going to potentially be a problem because you're going to have tunnel vision. Your peripheral vision is going to be narrowed quite significantly under a stressful situation, and you're probably not going to see them until the last possible moment. So just be cognizant that there could be people running between you and the target. What is the backstop behind your target? Is it a concrete wall? Is it a brick wall? Is it something that is going to stop a round that either overpenetrates or that misses your target? Think of it this way. Every round you launch out of your gun has a lawyer attached to it. You want to make sure that your round finds its target, or if it doesn't, that there is something that will stop that round and not continue downrange and impact something you did not intend to have hit. You need to follow these rules regardless of where you are, whether you're on the range plinking with your family, you're shooting competition, or you're using your gun to defend your life. You want to use these rules at all times. There's not something that you just use when you're at the range. They follow you around anytime you are using a firearm or have a firearm with you. Oftentimes you will find in competition during the shooter's brief that the rules will be recited or expected to be recited by everybody that is in the competition. This gives the ability for everybody to recognize and start processing these rules. I see these rules as more bullet points, not necessarily just long drawn-out definitions, nor really should they be. It is something that your brain can easily wrap around. It's small little chunks of information, and then you can kind of figure out in the background, okay, exactly what does this mean. You'll oftentimes see folks using 3 rules or 5 rules or 6 or 10 rules. I think 4 is probably about right. It covers all of the bases that we need to be safe with our firearms. You can make it more complicated, but I don't think it really needs to be any more complicated than it is. If you break one of the safety rules, you're probably going to be embarrassed because you're going to have a round going off where you didn't intend to. You may or may not have a problem. If you break 2 or more of these rules, you could have a very serious problem. Somebody could be going to the hospital, or worse, somebody could be going to the morgue. So you need to be cognizant of the 4 safety rules at all times. Train hard, stay safe.